You're tuned in to the It's Real podcast with your hosts, Kayla Callender and Andrew Yagi. Each week, we'll talk about what happens behind the scenes working full-time in real estate and share with you real-life stories, our successes and failures as we work to help consumers and industry professionals reach their real estate and real-life goals. Here we go. It's episode 24 of the It's Real podcast. I'm Andrew Yagi, and I'm a real estate agent.
And I'm Kayla Callender, and I'm a mortgage lender.
Kayla, winter is here, I think.
It has made its appearance for the year. Yes, we got a little bit of snow overnight in Fargo. How about where you guys are at?
Yeah, just a little bit of a dusting and just really kind of cold and gross outside. But I guess we knew it would come to this.
It's here. And I was just telling a coworker, I'm like, I'm already over it. The cold, you're forced to wear the boots. You got to be careful when you walk. You got to run so that your face doesn't get, hit with snow. But, people are really nice in this area. There's good jobs. There's seasons. So
there's a lot to love.
There's a lot to love. And get used to hunkering down a little bit, North Dakota, Minnesota, because we're here for it.
Absolutely. So what's new in your world this week, Kayla?
This week, a big event for a board that I'm on is Homeward Animal Shelter, which you can probably hear my own dogs barking, is tonight. They have their whiskers and wine event. So that is something really cool. They do it annually. I'm really excited about that because we get a ton of really great people supporting the cause. So that's tonight, and that's probably the highlight of my week. But
I was just looking just a little bit as you were talking about that, and last year it looked like there was a little bit of a masquerade theme. I love the outfit, by the way. What's the theme this year?
So this year it's like old Hollywood. So you can dress up like old Hollywood. You can wear jeans. You could wear a gala dress. And there might be some animals like on the red carpet. So that's just fun to see that. But essentially what's really cool about it is you can come and go. You can dress up, not dress up. And you can do silent auction items. You can do like a wine raffle. So it's really for anyone that just has a few moments in their day to come and support. So
very cool.
Really
That's
cool.
actually a really kind of a fun event. I mean, I love animals. We don't have any animals at home. A lot of people say, hey, you should get a dog. You should get a dog for your girls. And I said, well, we have one at daycare. The girls go to daycare, and they actually have two dogs there right now. It's our daycare lady's son just they just got married about a week or so ago, and they have a dog that hangs out there too. So they're full of pets for now.
They get a little exposure, but yeah, we'll work on that though, Andy. We'll get you hooked up.
Yeah, awesome.
What's going on in your world? How's your week been? What's new? I know you've got a closing, well, multiple today, but what's going on in your world?
No, it's been busy. So kind of like I said before, October is always a really, really busy month, especially, taking part in some family farming operations. Sugar beet harvest wrapped up like we talked last time, and it was a lot longer of a harvest than anyone would have anticipated. No rain all summer, and then just rain. But it was a great harvest. It was a safe harvest. Everything went well, and I've been doing a little bit of flying, been down to the Kansas area and back. And actually kind of a busy real estate week. Our team, we've been helping some clients put some properties under contract, which has been really fun, especially as things get slow, both between interest rates and also the seasonality. But we've got 3 closings today, Kayla. It's been kind of a wild ride. Had one deal that we thought was totally dead in the water a month ago, and buyer kind of getting cold feet, and then at the 11th hour kind of coming back here and getting it closed. And I've got another one that has been really, really strange. Just not great communication. I know we talk about it a lot, Kayla, about how it matters who you work with, but both a buyer's agent and a lender who have just been virtually non-communicative, and working with our seller, really having to do a lot of work behind the scenes for everybody to make sure this comes together. So we're going to be really happy to put this kind of to bed for our clients, and another transaction kind of helping an individual and her family get into a house of their own. They're really, really excited. In fact, we're just texting me, hey, you're going to be sure to bring a sold sign, right? Because we're really excited and we want to get some pictures. So really,
Good.
really excited to just help. And uh,
Mhm.
it's really awesome, Kayla, to be able to help people reach their realistic goals.
It is, and it's such a pivotal part in someone's life, and a lot of times it's kind of chaotic. There's a lot of paperwork and things going on at that point of we found the house. It's kind of a mad dash sometimes, but when you get to the closing table and you see joy and they show the gratitude, that's what kind of grounds us in this industry is we get to help make that happen. So that's
Right.
really so.
Well, even more important now, like I'm so grateful when you talk about gratitude. Number one, for great lenders, like this first time home buyer working with a lender who the lender actually referred the client to me. So really, really grateful for
Wow.
John and his team. I know he's not going to be there at closing with us today, but know that everything's well taken care of because he's been a great communicator. We've gotten everything taken care of, especially my team. I'm really grateful for my full-time team members that are in my office that, especially during a chaotic month, keep things afloat as well. So,
Mhm. And communication is kind, and no matter what it is in real estate, whether you need to eat the frog or just simple communication, it goes such a long way. So I'm glad that you have a lender that's doing
yeah,
that.
absolutely. Kayla, one thing that we talk about all the time is rates. And why don't you update us on kind of what rates are doing and what you're seeing in the market?
Yeah, so right now, thank you for bringing this up. In the last, probably when I think about our last podcast that we've done, we've seen right around that 7 mark up to we saw above 8%. So I'm seeing rates that are pretty flat in this last week. Now, 7.88%, again, this stat from Mortgage News Daily, it is a published rate based on national averages. It doesn't take into account your exact scenario, whether it's a investment property, things like that. So each lender is going to be different. And for example, you might see that rate today, at 7.88, but if you're buying in the state of North Dakota as a first-time home buyer, you could get a rate as low as 5.95 or 6%, depending upon. So it's important that you talk to your lender to find that out. But I had a call this week, and I had heard now. No one, we always say no one has a crystal ball, no one knows the future, right, Andy? But there has been talks that the Fed is done. The Fed is done. We won't see a huge decrease or increase, but the word on the street in my world is that the Fed is done raising rates.
Sure.
So I'm having conversations with my clients. The one thing that I say is when you're in contract, would you rather not lock and find out that the rates went up, or you lock and found out that they went down? And it's your level of risk.
Yeah.
It, that's what you have to consider. But I think we're going to see flat, not a lot of activity on interest rates going forward.
Mhm. And you're right. Like even when we talked about the North Dakota housing rates, last time we chatted, and I think programs like this are really awesome. Minnesota Housing has some really great programs as well. Uh,
Hmm. Yep.
I one of my closings today. I know that we're using some Minnesota programs that were really, really favorable and are really helping this particular buyer get into
Hmm.
some housing. So it's really good to see. Um, to see some programs like this, and again, all the more reason to align yourself with someone who's going to take the time to educate you and actually look out for you and say, hey, this is something that we should really look at because it's going to make your life a lot easier. It's going to help you afford a
Hmm.
home that you maybe thought was unattainable.
Absolutely. And the thing about those programs too is they're not just for first-time home buyers. You can be a repeat buyer. So that's where you see all those programs. That's because there are so many options. So find a lender, point taken is find a lender that has options because you don't have to stick with super high rates in some scenarios.
Yep, absolutely.
Hmm.
Awesome, Kayla. Well, I want to shift our focus a little bit. And so a couple of minutes ago, I talked about all the things that I have going on and,
Yeah.
some of the interesting deals that we're working through. And, just like with anything out there, there are some transactions that we work through incredibly easy. I have one that's going to close in about another week. It's a cash transaction. It's
Nice.
smooth. It's simple. It almost makes you feel like sometimes, like, I can't believe I'm getting paid for this. But then there are some other transactions, like the ones I reference, and it's like,
Hmm.
I, the amount of work you're doing, like you're working so hard for not a lot of money, which brings up the topic of our podcast today, Kayla, is how agents and lenders get paid.
Yeah.
I want to reference, I follow Tom Ferry quite a bit.
Yeah.
And Tom Ferry's kind of a famed real estate coach. I actually worked with a Ferry coach for a little while. And, this is obviously communication geared towards a real estate agent or a lender, but the homebuyer education, most agents fail to deliver. And so this talked about 1,000 watt. They're kind of a group that surveys, that does housing related surveys. And so 1,000 watt released a survey that basically asks individuals, and they ask one question: are you clear on how the agent who helped you got paid for their work when you bought a house? And 74.17% said no. They
Wow.
had no idea how
Mhm.
the agent they worked with got paid.
My, oh my.
Yeah. So what does
That's
that say, Kayla? That tells us that we need to do a better job of
yeah.
educating consumers.
We do.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the agent part, but first, Kayla, I want you to talk about, how does a lender get paid?
It's a great question. And it's not the same way a realtor gets paid, I'll tell you that. So there's a lot of different ways that lenders can get paid depending upon who they work for, where they work. Are they at a bank? Are they at a brokerage? It's going to depend upon who their employer is. Most loan officers, most are 100% commission. Most. Now, some are not. Some are paid a base salary. Especially if they're in a bank, you might see that more often. But they're paid maybe a small base and higher commission. So a lender is paid just like you, Andy, and we'll get into that as well. But a lender is paid based on if a loan closes. So we may spend days and hours, months, years getting somebody pre approved, getting them pre qualified through the process, running numbers on homes, new construction, existing homes, 2-1 buy downs. What does this program look like? What about first time home buyers? So, as a lender, we do all of this work, but a lender is not paid unless a client finds a home, gets into that home successfully, and closes and signs on the dotted line. Then a lender is paid. But how is a lender paid? Like what's it based off of? What is that commission based off of?
Yeah, what is it?
Well, in our world as a lender, we get paid not based off of the purchase price, not based off of the value. We typically get paid off of the loan amount. So if a client is buying $1 million home and they're putting a half a million down, a lender will get paid on the loan amount of $500,000. So it's a little bit different than a realtor, but we're paid off the loan amount and we're only paid if a loan is closed. And a lot of people don't think that. They think we get paid taking an application, they think we get paid just a flat amount. But no, it's based off the loan amount and only if it closes.
Very, very interesting.
Mhm. Yeah.
So oftentimes, and just like some real estate transactions on the agent side, you might do a lot of work and it might be fruitless, or you might have someone that comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to buy this $1 million property in Arizona, Kayla. Let's do it." And boom, it's a slam dunk.
Yeah, and you wanna know what happens in other cases, Andy, is someone may use you for the pre-approval, to get pre-qualified, whatever it may be, run numbers, they get in a contract. You as a lender, you work hard, you call the listing agent, you let them know. You basically tee this up, take care of the client. Sometimes clients are saying, "Hey, I found the perfect house. I gotta get pre-approved today." And you're scrambling. And you wanna know what can happen sometimes, Andy?
What's that, Kayla?
The client could say, "You know what? I'm going to hop online at that lender and their rates look a little bit better. I'm going to go use that lender." So there are times where lenders will do a lot of work for somebody
Yeah.
and drop everything to stand out. And there is that risk that someone may leave them, whether it's for their cousin who's a lender, or they saw a lower rate, or maybe there's a certain program that a promo that's being run. So it's a risk you take as a lender. It's the cost of doing business.
And it's not much different for a real estate agent either. I had a very interesting case recently, Kayla, where I had a buyer reach out on one of my listings, and we went and we set up a showing. We looked through the property. We had a second showing. We talked extensively day after day after day, basically worked out an offer, and then heard from the buyer that, oh, I guess we're going to work with another agent. Now, in real estate, we generally, and I should say as real estate agents, we generally try to have a buyer's representation agreement in place, Kayla. And this just kind of spells out. So this is the Minnesota form, the North Dakota form's different, but it's very, very similar. It just kind of spells out who the buyer is, who the broker is, which would be eXp Realty in my case, the date that this agreement is in place, and just kind of what the broker's obligation is, what the buyer's obligation is. And it gets into compensation, which I'll talk about. I didn't happen to have one of these in place, but there's also in real estate something called procuring cause. Who has cause, who basically helped facilitate this sale.
Right.
I had a really, really good case for procuring cause. However, I also know that, arguing cases like that can be a little bit challenging, but it is very frustrating when you do a lot of work and then someone remembers, oh, I have someone that I should work with, or whatever, which sometimes is the risk you end up taking. So it can be very, very frustrating. And for real estate agents, Kayla, it's much the same. Like, I left a great job prior to this where I made a really good income, a guaranteed salary, to come where I get paid nothing. I mean, as an agent, for the most part, there are some brokerages out there that do pay a salary. I have some agents on staff that I do pay a base salary because they help me with other things, and then we pay them, a commission of sorts. But most agents are not making anything unless they sell something. As real estate agents, every brokerage or every agent can negotiate their own commission, or every client can negotiate their own commission with a seller or a buyer. In our area, a lot of times we see anywhere from the 5 to 7% range. So if I list a house, it might cost that seller an average of 6%. And out of that, I'm keeping a portion, and I'm giving a portion of it to another agent if they bring a buyer. If I don't sell something, for the most part, I'm not collecting anything. There is an opportunity, if I would like, to charge something up front, as far as a retainer fee goes, and that could be charged to a buyer or to a seller. As we look on our buyer's representation agreement, it talks about broker compensation, whether we want to collect a retainer fee, which I think we're going to see more of, in the future. However, when the market's really competitive and there are agents everywhere, most agents will work for, sometimes next to nothing, or not want a retainer fee. But there are some, especially on the commercial side, where I do charge a retainer fee and just say, hey, if we do end up finding something that, your compensation, that'll go towards the compensation that's being paid. But generally, we're going to spell out how we're being paid, whether it's a percentage, whether it's a flat fee. And then if this agreement were to expire, Kayla, and they were to purchase within a specified amount of time, and we've given them a list of properties we've worked together on, compensation still would be due. So this is kind of put in place because it doesn't happen often, but in the past, there have been some individuals that they maybe know a seller and say, you know what, let's just cancel the agreement. Let's get the agents out of the picture, and then let's just get this done at a reduced price and just cut the agents out. Well, this kind of prevents that loophole. In our compensation agreement, Kayla talks about the fact that if a seller is offering compensation, is that going to reduce the buyer's obligation? And generally it's going to. Talks about the type of property we're looking at. I know you obviously have to put together, statements and financial disclosures, as a lender, but as an agent too, whenever we're putting anything under contract, especially in the case of a buyer, we have to disclose to them how we're being paid, so there aren't any surprises later. Because in the case of having a buyer's representation agreement in place, Kayla, and let's say we find a for sale by owner property, that owner may not offer compensation. And so I always tell buyers 99% of the time, at least how real estate stands right now, the seller is going to pay my compensation, or they have an offering, and that's probably 99% of the time going to cover what your obligation is. But
Mhm.
every once in a while, you may have to pay the compensation out of pocket if you're looking to use my services.
Right. And I think one thing that's important to highlight is that when we think about how lenders and realtors are paid, typically, if you are a buyer and you're using a lender and an agent to represent you for the buy, you typically, as a buyer, are not paying the realtor or the lender. That's not how they're getting paid. The lender is getting paid off of their company or whoever they sell the loan to. That's how they're compensated. The realtor who's helping you find the homes is getting paid by the seller's agent. So in that form is that it's not the buyer that's paying anything. Now, there sometimes is a broker transaction fee,
Yep.
but when it comes down to it, I think it's important to note that typically the buyer is not incentivizing anybody. They're not paying the lender or realtor. It's the seller slash seller's agent that's paying the realtor and the lender's company and or servicer investor that's paying them.
Yep.
And that's
Absolutely. Well, and that's at least the case right now. Uh, Kayla, it's very, very interesting right now. I don't know if you followed it very much, but I'll just talk briefly about it. But right now, there are some, basically antitrust lawsuits that are going on that may very well, and I predict that it will eventually change the way real estate agents are compensated and the way we transact real estate, because this typical arrangement where the seller is paying likely will go away, as will probably a lot of buyers agents.
Mhm.
um, in that there are some individuals that are challenging this right now, and just saying that basically the National Association of Realtors basically is involved in antitrust practices, kind of setting commissions, in that we talk about kind of that standard that kind of is our local custom. It's not mandated by anyone, but there are some individuals that are asserting that it is mandated and that it shouldn't be paid. But Kayla, really, it'll be very interesting to see what comes down the pipe with some of this, as it could really affect
Mhm.
how buyers are looking and how they're represented. They may have to pay for their own agent if they're looking at using an agent. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, it comes down to education. We try to do a really great job of educating our clients. It isn't perfect in every case, just because, especially as we live in such a global marketplace, people coming to us from all over. I mean, there are some individuals who are buying homes from a distance. It's
Yep.
really hard, to sit down with them and really educate them. And, kind of hand in hand with that statistic, that 74.17% of consumers having no idea about
Mhm.
how an agent or even a lender is compensated. The same goes hand in hand with really what is an agent or a lender do. And so this is just kind of a quick, flow chart that kind of talks about what all an agent does. And
Yeah.
so many things are happening behind the scenes, whether it's me doing it, whether it's my executive assistant or another one of the agents that works for me. And I'm sure it's the same case for you, Kayla, behind the scenes for mortgage.
And that's the thing too, is a lot of people don't realize what goes into it. They say, "Oh, a realtor's just showing me houses," or "A lender is just giving me money." There's so much work that goes into it that sometimes all it takes is for us to just educate that client, because they
Mhm.
don't know what they don't know. And so by educating, getting ahead of it, and also having a little empathy through the whole process, the clients are getting a lot of info. We're setting them up for success to understand what we do.
Well, and the biggest thing, like we talk often, and I've said before, find out who your lender or your agent is and stick with them. I, again, can't tell you the number of times where people are jumping around or they're calling agents because they
Yeah.
can't get a hold of their agent. And
Mhm.
people who take that approach, ultimately in a competitive market and just in general, do not have a lot of success, Kayla.
Right.
And I just had this happen, and I'm sorry, like in your case, as a lender, when you put in all of this hard work and people jump around or they just use you for a pre-approval. I have,
Mhm.
potential buyers that come and they ask, well, I'll just get a pre-approval for them, but I really want to work with someone else. And I'll
Yeah.
really dissuade them from doing that, because it
I do.
just, it's not polite. I think it shows a little bit a lack of respect,
Mhm.
because everyone's time is so valuable. The same thing with agents. One of the agents in my office just came to me this last week, frustrated, has been working with this buyer, asked the buyer point blank, "Are you working with an agent?" No, no, we're not. Well, they find a house they love, and well, lo and behold, they have an agent in another marketplace that
Wow.
they're going to work with and try to cut him out of the middle. Sometimes you just have to cut your losses and move on. You're going to run into people like that, but that's where I've gotten a lot pickier, Kayla. If I don't get a good vibe from somebody,
Yeah.
I respectfully tell them, hey, it doesn't seem like we're a good fit for each other. There are a lot of great agents out there. Good luck
Yeah.
to you.
Well, and I love that you say that too about, a client says, "Hey," especially in those moments where they didn't do the work ahead of time to get pre-approved. They didn't do the work to, get pre-qualified with the lender. And so they're like, well, this one's going to get me the letter and then I'll switch. Well, what's also kind of disrespectful is, Andy, you're taking this letter and you're giving it to the seller's agent and the seller, and you're saying, here's our pre-approval with X bank with this lender. Well, if they have a really great reputation and they close on time and they're well respected, a seller might say, hey, I've worked with this girl before, trust her, like this will get done. And then if you see them flip it to, I'm just going to use Rocket Mortgage, why not, and,
Ooh,
and they use them, then maybe you're risking not closing on time, and that reflects on you, Andy, because you provided that letter and now it's someone completely different. So
yep.
I think that's awesome that you do that, because that speaks for your clients as well as the sellers as well.
Yep, absolutely. Well, and ultimately, we're here to do what's best for the client. And I
Yeah.
do encourage my clients to, hey, you know what? You should shop around a little bit, shop maybe two different lenders and just kind of see, because you may be surprised. You may be able to get a little bit of a better deal. Someone may have a better promotion, or they'll sharpen their pencil a little bit. But honestly, like, everyone we have to treat each other well.
Mhm.
And I just believe in good communication.
Yep, absolutely. And I think our listeners maybe even that had questions about how we get paid, how does this work? I hope that this enlightens them. They understand the work that's put in and the why, and that everyone should have representation. I think to
Mhm.
leave our audience with that is, have
Yep.
representation with a realtor, because whether it's new construction or it's existing, whether it's for sale by owner, having representation, someone that understands purchase agreements and negotiations, is crucial, because this is the biggest purchase you will probably ever make. I think it's important that you have someone that you're really not having to pay for currently. I think it's incredibly huge that people have representation.
Yep, absolutely. And I think one of the biggest things, because there are a lot of people that say, hey, I can sell my own real estate. And yeah, there are a lot of people that can. There are a lot of people that can do their own electrical work, that can work on their vehicles, but there are a lot of people that can't. And especially I've been so surprised, Kayla, and I've said it, and not to downplay, the loss of someone you love, but coming from working in funeral service for 15 years, I thought that there would be less emotion in real estate, when in fact, in some ways, the emotions can be worse than some of the families that I've worked with in the past. And just the behaviors of people and how they treat, whether it's their agents or other individuals. I mean, it's just unbelievable, the emotions that are present in buying or selling a home. And so having a trusted agent really keeps everything objective, because there are a lot of deals that would not get done if
Mhm.
people were, kind of left to their own devices, so to
Oh,
speak.
right. Or in some cases, I've had people come to me asking me to write purchase agreements, and I'm like, I'm not a real estate agent. I'm not licensed, and then people are then having to hire attorneys or lawyers, and they don't know the purchase agreements as well sometimes as much as a real estate agent. So you're still paying then now out of pocket when you wouldn't have had to before. So
Mhm.
I feel you. I love that comment though that you made about, Andy. You've been in this industry of funeral services, and now you're in people buying things. Let's just say it's a thing, and the emotions are more. Like, that's very interesting.
Right.
And actually, when you say it, I'm not surprised. So
Mhm.
it's a lot
Yeah.
of emotions.
Yeah, it is, and it's every week is a new adventure, I find, just with emotions and everything. But again, like, you get to the point. I remember when I first jumped into real estate, Kayla, I had anxiety all the time about things falling apart,
Yeah.
screwing something up, and just people mad about this or that. And now people call and say, I need to back out of this transaction, or hey, this isn't working. It's like, okay, whatever, just let it roll off your back. That's why we're here to be we're uninvested emotionally. We're here to do what's best for our clients. Obviously, like we've talked compensation, we need to be paid for that. There are a lot of people that unfortunately think, whether lenders or real estate agents, well, hey, you sit here and you collect a fat check and you don't do a lot of work. But, kind of like I illustrated, Kayla, there are so many things that we do. And looking even at, our overhead, from staff to systems to office space, to be able to support all of these things,
Mhm.
it takes a good chunk of money on a monthly basis
Mhm.
to stay afloat. So, we're not putting all of it in our pocket. There are real expenses. But we're here
Yeah.
not for the money, but because we want to serve people and we want to help them reach their real estate goals.
Exactly. And the way to do that is, end of the day, hire the professionals, let them do the work for you and take the stress on our shoulders so that you can enjoy the home buying journey, the moving, the painting, the packing. Although that's not a lot of fun,
Ooh,
but you know what I mean. Enjoy that piece and let us professionals handle the rest.
absolutely. Well, what a great discussion, Kayla. I really appreciate it. It's a pleasure as always. I hope you enjoy the weekend. Enjoy your gala,
I
and
will.
we'll connect again next week.
Sounds good. Enjoy your weekend, Andy.
You as well. We'll see you.
Bye.